Hey, Victoria, Madam Chair, just so you know,
Yes.
we've come to the appointed time and place, and you do have a quorum, so you may call the meeting to order at your discretion.
Very good. I will give it 30 more seconds until it's actually 1:30.
1,000, 1,000.
It looks like it has become 1:30, so I will call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. If we'd like to start with introductions in the room, John, I'll ask you to start and let you point the direction.
All right, well, John Lusaus, Transportation Director, PPACG, and we'll go to our left with Hal.
Hal Archer, U.S. Air Force Academy.
Darren Horsemeyer, Community Planner at Schriever Space Force Base.
Matthew Helfant, Mountain Metro Transit.
Ben Schmidt, Director of Public Services, City of Manitou.
Josh Squires, Transportation Planner, PPACG.
Jeff Guthrie, CDOT Region 2 Planning Supervisor.
Gail Sturdivant, City of Colorado Springs, City Engineer, Deputy Public Works Director.
Dan Ungerleider, Planning Director, Town of Monument.
Lisa Gagnon, Transit Planner, PPACG. And Danelle Miller, PPACG.
And then in the room, we have some folks who are going to be here for the workshop, the freight workshop after the meeting, as well as some speakers for today. Online, Madam Chair, if that's all right, I'll just sort of read who I have, unless you have a list that you can read from.
Nope, go ahead, John.
All right, so we've got Andrew Archuleta, if you'd like to unmute and say howdy and who you're with, because I forgot already.
Andrew Archuleta, Assistant Director of Public Works, Town of Monument.
I knew that. I was testing you.
No worries.
We have Beth Dukes.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Beth Dukes, Community Planner at Peterson Space Force Base.
Great, thank you. Jacob Matson, MMT.
Good afternoon, Jacob Matson, Planning Operations with MMT.
Lachelle Davis, CDOT.
Good afternoon, Lachelle Davis, CDOT Local Agency Program.
Lindsay Jaquez, CDOT.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lindsay Hawkes, CDOT Region 2 Planning.
Okay, Scott Barnhart, El Paso County.
Scott Barnhart, Traffic Operations Manager, El Paso County.
Scott Skinner, CDOT.
Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Skinner, Transit Liaison for Region 2 CDOT.
Stacy DeRocha.
Hey, good afternoon. Stacy DeLozier, Palmer Lake Public Works.
Okay, and let me just see if there's anybody else joined that went to the top of the list. I'm sorry, Lan Rao, MMT.
Thank you, John. Lan Rao, Transit Division Manager, Mountain Metro Transit.
Okay, and then if we could, and then we've got Aaron Busto, FHWA.
Hello, this is Aaron Busto with Federal Highways.
John Hall, CDOT.
John Hall, CDOT, Colorado Springs Area North Program Engineer.
Kathleen Collins, CDOT.
Kathleen Collins, CDOT Planning Liaison for Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, CDOT HQ.
Abba with Fountain.
Good afternoon, Abba Dravati with City of Fountain.
Right, unless we can scroll down and but I think I got everybody.
Everybody but me, Victoria Chavez, El Paso County.
I figured you would just introduce yourself. So that is your introductions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. So do we have any changes to the agenda today?
I reckon not.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Ben Schmidt, City of Manitou Springs, motion to approve.
This is Gail Sturdivant. I will second the motion.
Thank you for that motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. I understand we have a public comment today.
Yes, we have a public presentation. I'm here to introduce Michael Simler from Fountain. And we're going to talk more about the microtransit that is soon to be coming to Fort Carson. I won't speak too much because we have exciting news, and Michael can tell us more about it.
Michael. We cannot hear online.
All right, well, yep, we're gonna have him move over to a mic that works. Oh,
Test, 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 test. Is that good? Everybody can hear?
I can hear you now.
Fantastic. So I'll repeat myself a little bit. Mike Simler, just a little background on myself. I'm the son of an Air Force fighter pilot. My father, General George Simler, was the second athletic director at the United States Air Force Academy. I'm privileged to work for the city of Fountain now and as their manager for our intergovernmental support agreement with Fort Carson to stand up the Carson Connector. Exciting opportunity. We have modeled this significantly off of the success of the Cavazos connector down at Fort Hood. An example of that success is, on average, Fort Hood, with its shuttle service on a fixed route, used to have 3,000 people per year riding that service. Within a year and a half, that service went up to 500,000 using this type of on-demand microtransit system that we're looking at. When I say this, and we don't like to really use the word Uber or Lyft, but that's essentially what this is. Soldiers are going to be downloading an app, just like you would with Uber or Lyft. They will see, if you can see to the right-hand side, the top side of that, they will, when they download from either Apple or Google, they'll see this icon and go through the process just like you would with any other on-demand service to utilize the app and move away from the current shuttle service that they have on post at Carson, and now have the flexibility of using this technology-enabled, flexible, and efficient mobility solution. I already touched on this in terms of what happened down at Hood. Two of my lead driver and my lead dispatcher just got back from a week of immersion down in Hood. I will tell you that it had a great interface with the team down there. Ultimately, our goal is to be better than the service than what they provide down there, and I'm a little competitive, and I think we're well on our way to doing that. To give you an example of some of the exciting things that have already happened, we've moved into what we're calling our transportation operations center on Fort Carson. Great facility, 2,500 square foot facility there. We will go fully operational on June 1. We will have, at any one point in time during the course of operations, the daily operations, which Monday through Friday run from 6:30 in the morning till 6:30 in the evening. Saturday and Sunday, 9:30 in the morning until 6:30 in the evening. So we'll have up to eight vehicles out on the road. One of those will be what we're calling a special service van. And what that means is down at Hood, the Cavazos connector, they do have obviously ADA capable vehicles down there, but they don't get a lot of use. So what we want to do is turn that vehicle into a special services vehicle. So today we received our first phone call from a spouse, an Army spouse on post. And she was asking about whether she can use car seats and the type of service that we provide. We cover the cantonment area of Fort Carson. So you're looking at an area going all the way out to Butts Army Airfield. We have 2 areas off post, one at South Academy Highlands where we will be able to drop our riders off at the Walmart or the Sam's or the restaurants. And then one at Pikes Peak State College, which affords access to Mountain Metro and the City of Fountains transit as well. So in getting that one phone call, we're already starting to see how we can impact the lives. So this is welfare and morale of both the military members on post and their dependents. There's 4 categories essentially of riders that we'll have. Active duty military. There are other military branches on Fort Carson, so it's open to everybody there. The key to this is it's completely free to the soldiers who are using it. And the same goes with family members, so dependent family members, Army civilian employees, and authorized contractors. Again, this is no different than booking off of one of the current Uber, Lyft apps. So they will be able to go in. The example I just used as a special services vehicle, they'll see that and they'll be able to choose that. If it's a spouse and she has 2 children and 2 car seats and a wagon that she wants to put her groceries in and a stroller, we're going to use that ADA compliant vehicle to make sure she's comfortable, she's not rushed, and she has all the access that she needs. This is a shared ride service, but we can optimize the type of way we want to deliver that service. So we can go to, let's use a barracks area. If we have a large barracks area and there's multiple people within that barracks area that need a ride, we can vector them to one location within that area and pick up all 5 for efficiency purposes. If it's a housing area, we can do the same thing. So we want to maximize the efficiency of operations. We're using Spare Labs technology to really be the brain and the heart of this system. I could go on and on. I don't have the time today to give you the background on what the capabilities are, but for those military members, if you imagine that you're in a military talk and you saw the data that was coming in from that, it's almost overwhelming to a point. But we can fine tune operations in real time utilizing that service. We're also based off of connectivity. We're using FirstNet wireless, which is obviously well proven. Geotab is really for our fleet services and making sure that we're taking proper care of our vehicles. And it gives us a significant amount of information on location of our vehicles, speed of the drivers, et cetera, et cetera. There's a ton of different operational benefits. I think at the end of the day, and you can see here what I've listed, but let me say that the directive of the commanding general of the 4th ID, Major General Ellis, is very succinct and direct. We need to get his people to the chow halls in a timely manner, make sure they get there. They just opened up the Stack restaurant. It's a revitalized version of what it was. The commander of Army Pacific Forces was just out here yesterday. It's a big deal. We want to make sure that we're getting those soldiers there so that they can experience that new chow hall. Really, the conclusion of this is we're providing modern, flexible services to the community at Fort Carson. Our vision goes beyond this. We're fortunate to have fantastic partners at CDOT and Mountain Metro to work with. And we have a vision for a phase 2 of this. But right now, the full focus of what we're doing is on Fort Carson and making sure that we execute on the mission that Major General Ellis has for us. Any questions? Okay, I appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Michael. Next on our agenda is approval of the meeting minutes for March. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
And Schmidt, City Manager, move to approve the minutes.
I think Ben thought I was gonna go first, but I was slow. Gail Sturdivant, I'll second the motion.
Thank you for the motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Board of Directors report. Who would like to take that today?
We did not have a lot to talk about at the Board of Directors related to transportation. We did adopt the safety action plan for the region. So hopefully you have all received that email that has our final our link to the document that's been posted online, which contains the board resolution. We also put together a certification worksheet for anybody who is interested in applying for that SS4A funding. So we thank the board for their adoption of that plan. Aside from that, I don't believe there were any transportation items aside from a discussion on some policy related to busting funding. There are some proposals to utilize some CTIO funding for busting services, and there is some concern regarding potential legislation that would allow for, if I understand correctly, allow for toll funds that are collected in one corridor to be spent in another corridor. So there is some general concern about that, but that is not a legislative item yet. So our board and Jared presented on that and just talked a little bit about those potential funding ideas that are being discussed at the Transportation Commission. Anything else, John, that I might have missed?
Nope. Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 6, action items. And it looks like we're going to have a tip approval.
Hi, Tech. The draft fiscal year 2027 through 2031 Transportation Improvement Program has completed its required 30-day public comment period, which concluded on April 12th. No public comments were received. During this time frame, PBACG held 2 open houses, one in person and one virtual, provide opportunities for the public to provide input, with 1 member of the public in attendance. PBACG appreciates all the participation from our jurisdictions and their staff who attended and helped address any project-specific questions that came up. The draft was also made available online at PBACG's website, and a newspaper publication with that website was posted, and the final document is online for review. The proposed motion today is to recommend adoption of the fiscal year 2027 through 2031 Transportation Improvement Program to the Board of Directors.
After reviewing it, does anybody have any questions or concerns on the tip? Hearing none, I will.
Manager,
please,
this
Gail.
Gail Sturdivant, I'd like to recommend, make a motion to recommend adoption of fiscal year 27 to 31 Transportation Improvement Program to the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Board of Directors.
Thank you, Gail. Do I have a second?
This is Dan Ungerletter. I second the motion.
Thank you, Dan. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you for everybody for your work and your collaboration on this. So that moves us to item number 7, information items, congestion management. Danelle, are you taking that?
I am, and this will be pretty high level today. Just wanted to kind of introduce the topic of the congestion management process. If you've been around for a while, you probably already know this, but we do have some newer members of the TAC. So I just wanted to walk through why we're doing this. So what we're doing is kicking off the congestion management process, which is really one of our first steps to the development of our new long-range transportation plan here in a few years. And this is a document that looks at performance of the transportation system, obviously congestion, both recurring and non-recurring congestion causes within the region. And it is a required document for metropolitan areas with population over 200,000 people. We then take that congestion management process and use that as part of our base and part of our existing conditions for our long-range transportation plan. Right now, we're just looking at starting the update process. We don't anticipate a lot of heavy updates to the CMP, but we will likely have some workshops with TAC folks to make sure that everything in the document is up to not only existing conditions, but is what you want it to be. So for example, we will talk about updates based on just federal and state guidance. We will look at updating any objectives that we might want to change in light of the adjusted goals from the 2050 LRTP. We will also look at the CMP network and the strategic corridors. So we went through quite a bit of discussion for the last CMP to kind of put those definitions in place. We'll bring those back to the TAC, either in this format or in a workshop to make sure that you all are happy with that network and all of those definitions. Another point of, or another piece of information that's in the CMP that we'll want to talk about quite a bit with the TAC is a scoring criteria that was set forth in the CMP and then updated, of course, during the LRTP process. We'll bring that back to make sure that you all are happy with that moving forward. So again, we'll hopefully have quite a bit of new analysis because we now have streetlight data that we did not have when we previously did the CMP. So there may be some adjustment in schedule and things depending on what kind of data we find and what kind of reviews we need to have with the TAC. But at this point, we just wanted to let you all know that we were kicking this off, see if you have any concerns or suggestions for us moving forward, and just give you a kind of a status update.
Questions for Danelle? All right, sounds like you're off the hook, Danelle. Thank you for your update.
Thank you.
Functional classes. Looks like Will's going to come up for this one.
Hello, members of the TAC. My name is William Mast. I'm the GIS and Modeling Manager here at PBACG. And it seems like we just finished the long-range transportation plan, which means we get to start working on the next long-range transportation plan. And part of that is setting up a review of functional classification for roadways in the Pikes Peak region. Keep in mind that what we're talking about is functional classification with the Federal Highways Administration and CDOT. This is very different than how your local jurisdictions might have classified your roadways. The big thing to keep in mind with making changes to the federal functional classification is how does it sit within the network, and is this something that you would like to have eligible to receive federal funding? That's the big thing. You are not required to make any changes. There's no changes that have to be done, but there are guidelines and rules in place as to how roadways are classified with the FHWA, and typically a percentage of roadways for each classification within your jurisdiction. Obviously, not everything is eligible for federal funding. We are happy to help work with you on that. We've gone through this before with several different jurisdictions. The last time we did this, we updated functional classes for Monument, Manitou Springs, and Woodland Park. And if there are things that you're thinking about for the next long-range transportation plan, a project that you'd like to have put into that plan, but that roadway currently isn't functionally classified and therefore not eligible for federal funding, then by all means, follow up with me. Let me know. That's something that we can review. We'll take a look at your whole system. What we'll do is take a look at what you guys within your jurisdiction currently have categorized or on file really for highway use tax funds, and then how those classes are broken out, and be able to look and say, well, you have 30% as a minor arterial. The guidelines are around 30. What else can we do? Maybe there's something that comes off of the system if we add a new one, or you keep it on the system, but maybe the road has got increased usage and we need to change the classification. Maybe instead of a minor, it should be a principal, or vice versa. So these are things that we can talk about. If there are changes that you'd like to make, just let me know. If there's nothing that needs to be made, if your system looks good and there's nothing that you anticipate having to put on the next long range transportation plan, that's great. We can keep everything as is. If there are questions, please follow up with me. Happy to talk about it. The process is fairly lengthy, so that's why we're bringing it up now, because we are working on our 2025 base year model for the next long range transportation plan. And we want to make sure that if there are going to be changes, that we can get this through the whole gauntlet of steps before we start talking about project selection. Any questions right now? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Al. You are right about it being, I would not even call it fairly lengthy. I would call it lengthy. So it looks like we are up to Title VI update, and Danelle's going to take that for us.
Yes, I will be very brief, but Lisa Gagnon is also here with me, and she's actually the one who did the Title VI updates, and I did the limited English proficiency plan updates. We did talk about this last month and the month before, I believe, but there are two changes just to well, there's one schedule change that I wanted to bring to everybody. We are doing this still simultaneously with the public participation plan. However, they have different requirements in terms of public comments. So these we can actually take through the process a little bit quicker. These are more internal documents, so we can actually bring these back if folks are happy with them and recommend adoption next month. The public participation plan actually requires a 45-day public comment period. So that'll take a little bit longer in the actual adoption cycle. So that's kind of why we have them separated. We had brought you last month the full public participation plan draft. This month, we're just bringing you the Title VI and the limited English proficiency plan drafts, along with that summary of changes. And again, in both of those documents, the highlighted areas are areas where they were significantly changed. I'm happy to answer any questions, but we don't have a in-depth PowerPoint or anything at this point, unless you'd like one.
Danielle, this is Gail Stewart. So thank you for doing the updates on this. I just kind of had some questions because it talks about on the demographics, it says for 2024 census. And that seems like that might be off to me unless I missed a complete census, which is possible.
I believe it's the 2024 American Community Survey, which is provided by the census. So we probably need to address that language.
I think that would be great, because then that's my other questions, and how I kind of went back and made sure those were right is based on the languages and just making sure it makes sense. And intuitively it makes sense, but just to make sure what we're publishing is accurate. So thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Gail, any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, PPACG, for your continued work on these. They're long, but they're important.
Thank you.
Are we going to Jared for our legislative update?
Yes, we are. He's rushing the stage now. He's turned on his microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, the Jared Verner.
Thank you. Thank you, John. That's Bob Costas could not have done better, I don't think. Good afternoon, everyone. Jared Verner, Public Policy and Communications Manager here at PPACG. This was something we've been batting about, hey, would the TAC be interested in legislative update? If you guys aren't, feel free to boo me off the stage and I'll go back to my seat. But I'm going to try to keep this relatively high level, but I'm going to start with busting since Danelle kind of previewed that a little bit and where we kind of stand. So PPACG did send a letter to both the boards of directors for CTIO and the Transportation Commission regarding busting funding. So busting is facing about a $40 million shortfall in funds with the expiration of ARPA dollars. They feel like they have this upcoming fiscal year largely resolved through some one-time transfers and some other movement of funds, but it's looking at what the long-term outlook for funding looks like. It has been talked about several times, including at the board meetings yesterday and this morning, about using excess toll revenues from CTIO to fund busting operations. There was discussions, particularly from what I understand up in Weld County, where they were basically asked the toll revenues can be used basically in any corridor, and they heard pretty loud and clearly from Weld County that absolutely not. However, during that discussion, is that they do, so there is a state law that says toll revenues have to be used in the corridor which is collected in, and that is our official position as interpreting state law. The interpretation is that from the state is that I-25 from New Mexico to Wyoming is a corridor. And so toll revenues collected in the I-25 South Gap could be used, say, in the I-25 North section between Denver and Fort Collins, which I think our board of directors would differ strongly about that interpretation. Instead, the letter basically said that as such. John is rushing his mic.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, yes, I think they would bring up some of the statements that were made by then CDOT employees that is contrary to that
Yes.
point of view. So
it looks like we still got about 2 to 3 months based on what Director Liu told the TC at a workshop yesterday. At this point, from my understanding, they are not seeking any kind of legislative fix, partly because in CDOT's opinion, one is not required. Happy to answer any questions on busting. Okay. Talking generally about the state process right now, today is day 93 of 120, not that anyone is counting. That means we have about 27 days left of this general session. CNADA, for those marking their calendars, is midnight on March 13th. There are a couple bills that we're tracking. I've included them in there for your review. A couple of ones I want to talk about relating to the state budget. So the Senate did pass the budget today. It is now going to go to conference committee. We should have a finalized state budget probably, today's Thursday, probably sometime next week. There's 2 bills related to the state budget, 2 orbital bills is what they call 1398 and 1399, both of them related to the multimodal mitigation options fund, MMOF. One of those bills, 1399, would have permanently stopped a $10.5 million transfer from the general fund into the MMOF account permanently. That bill 1399 has been amended in both chambers. That's just a 1-year suspension, and so it would pick back up next year pending any other budget discussions. Those amendments were passed on both the House and the Senate side, so we're fairly confident that it doesn't change the upcoming budget at all. So we're hopeful that that can be included as a budget item. 1398 also applies to MMOF, and this would change the percentage between the state and locals, changing it from an 85-15 split between locals to the state to about a 70-30 split between locals and the state. This would largely keep the state harmless because right now the retail delivery fee, which is where that percentage comes from, is right now how MMOF is being funded. That's right now right around $10 to $11 million, so that keeps it relatively flat at the expense of locals. We're been in an amendment position on that one, working closely with Representative Richardson. He proposed the amendment on the House side. It didn't ultimately go through, and my understanding is it did not go through on the Senate side. So it's the two main budget bills that we're tracking, in addition to the overall state budget. Some other bills of note that I wanted to make sure people are aware of, we're tracking transit access, that's 1269. We've been working very closely with MMT to work on amendments to that bill. It has been significantly amended to take Teller Senior Coalition and Fountain Municipal Transit out of that bill completely. It does leave MMT with some reporting requirements that they are working very closely with CASTA to address. Ann at CASTA has been doing a phenomenal job about working with the bill sponsors on that particular bill. 1289, the title doesn't sound like it's something that we would track, but it is related to 1102, which we are tracking very closely. And I've talked to several of you about the transfer from HUTF into the Colorado Drives account. The reason why 1289 is in play is because if 1289 does not pass, or specifically section 21 of 1289 does not make it through, 1102 is now moot. 1289 essentially backfills HUTF somewhat close. There's a little discrepancy, but fairly close to what 1102 takes out. But that's why 1289 is something I wanted to flag for you guys as well. And then we're putting and then awareness on some other bills. 1037. This is ban government purchase of personal data from third parties. This is a bill. It has not gone out of the first committee, which I think is telling at this stage of the session. The definition of personal data is incredibly broad. And so while I think we would not consider some data to be personal, this bill does. From my personal perspective, I rely on Google Analytics just to be able to see, various website metrics that would be personal data, even though I have absolutely no idea who it is that any of this data is tied to. On the transportation side, what that means is that, for example, like streetlight data could be considered personal data. And so this has some issues in terms of just general planning. Like I said, it was introduced early. It has not gone anywhere. That tells me that's probably not going to go anywhere. But I want to make sure you're aware of that. And then the temperature protections bill, this was one that came back from last year. This would essentially punt it to rulemaking. It is right now stuck in House appropriations as well as anything else that requires an appropriations. As soon as the long bill passes, we're going to see that bottleneck in appropriations break through. So that's the state side. I've also included the federal bills for awareness. We're hearing fairly loudly that federal transportation reauthorization for surface transportation could be coming this session. My understanding is that titles are being floated through the committee right now, which means we should be getting fairly close to seeing some sort of text here relatively soon. With that cheery note, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jared, for that update. If you get federal reauthorization text, will you send that out to the TAC?
We will definitely, and I'm sure that if you are a member of any other, I'm looking at Gail for NLC, I'm sure NACO, I know they've been very heavily involved. I will probably get multiple emails from AMPO and NARC. So I will also ask if any of you get draft text to let us know too, because I have a feeling that once it drops, it will not be a secret.
Perfect. Thank you for all those updates. Are there any questions for Jared? Perfect job. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let me get back on my agenda and see where we are now. Looks like we are at the IIJA grant update.
Yes, and I'm sure everyone knows by now the Safe Streets and Roads for All notice of funding availability is out with a due date of May 26th. We did hear on that one that they are looking heavily at can't remember the wording, but basically evidence of stakeholder support. So if you are interested in getting a letter of support from PPACG, or if there's anything we can do to help you, please reach out to us. Karen is still our grant navigator. She is able to help you as well. So if there's anything we can do, please let us know. That's kind of the big one right now. We did get a state opportunity for Community Accelerated Mobility Project funding. We did hear that the state's TAP program, the Region 2 TAP, is probably pushed out to potentially the fall, Jeff? And
He's
aside
nodding
from
or anything that we can't see online.
he's nodding slowly with the gestures that they couldn't see online were. And that's about it. We continue to hear that things are going to come out. We just haven't seen them come out yet. And Jared has just mentioned the reauthorization. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but not sure what I can answer.
Danielle, I'll just add that if you're interested in the Bridge Investment Program grant, on March 20th, there was actually new grant application templates that were released on Federal Highway site. So if that's something you're looking at, take a look, because when they do drop it, it sounds like it's going to be a quick turnaround.
Yeah. All right. CDOT updates.
Hello, this is Kathleen. I'm going to go first. Jeff graciously said it was okay for me to go first. So, Spencer York at our CDOT HQ has been given a promotion as our land use planner. He's going to be joining the Main Streets and Active Transportation section under Medora Bornhoft. So we're congratulating him. He is a planning liaison also for Southwest and Northeast Colorado, and he'll be filling that role until they hire his replacement for that role. We also have the 10-year plan. The TC is planning to approve that document in May because a Region 5 project is being reviewed and reevaluated by the TC this month. I guess it was this morning or yesterday. Also, the STIP is going to move its approval out. There's going to be a public hearing in May now, and then the approval will be in June with federal approval by July 1 when it will take effect. There is a legislative update from CDOT that's maybe not as recent as Jared's, but it was from Emily Hadaway on 4/10 of 2026, and that was sent out to STAC members. And then the next STAC meeting will be May 7th, and it will be in person. And we will also follow that meeting with a meeting of TPR administrators. And the one topic on the agenda will be related to a new grant form that we're going to use for all our grants, and an overview of the One Grant program. We have a great section at CDOT now, the Subrecipient Support Grant Unit, and they are working on streamlining the grants process at CDOT. And so there's going to be an overview of that program at the TPR administrator meeting, and then also an overview of the new form, and that would be what's relevant to Pikes Peak. So that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you, Kathleen. Anybody else from CDOT want to chime in?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Jeff Guthrie here from Region 2 Planning. Everybody else stole my thunder. Just kidding. Thanks, Jared, for that great update on especially House Bill 1399. We're, I guess, for lack of a better word, excited to see that the general fund transfer to MMOF is only being eliminated for 1 year and not hereafter. That legislation that allowed for that general fund transfer was written through 2031 as it is. So everybody spend your MMOF money, please. That being said, it is roll forward season. Yeah. So local jurisdictions, please get with Josh to ensure tip accuracy for your MPO's tip and coordinate your unobligated funding roll forwards with him. We all at the MPO and at Region 2 and at Federal Highways and Federal Transit appreciate direct recipient award communication with us. So if you get any direct recipient grant funding, please do communicate with us as soon as possible to ensure, once again, TIP and STIP accuracy. And Kathleen indicated the STIP, Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, is going to have its public hearing period in May. Expected approval in June to be sent on to Federal Highways for their July approval. And just on that note, CDOT has deployed the project tracker software similar to your MPO's TIP software. It's a very, very similar public facing online platform. Do reach out to Lindsay, our internal subject matter expert, but I can stumble through it if you ask me any questions. Just to look at the public facing reports. And I know Jamie Collins at headquarters is still working with that consultant, that contractor, on refining some of the public facing information and or the lack thereof, some weird errors. And then since Danelle brought it up, I was going to bring it up anyway, but thank you, Danelle, for coaching me along. TAP, Transportation Alternatives Program. Just got notice, I think yesterday afternoon, from NASA Birmingham at our CDOT headquarters that the April coordination call with all the region planners has been canceled due to lack of updated information. And so we are now anticipating, even though I told you last month that this month I would have more information, I don't. So hopefully next month I will have more information for you all. That being said, I haven't seen any changes to the anticipated window for applications occurring in October, November, December of this year. And we are internally working amongst the regions and headquarters to volunteer our project application review committees and internal review and scoring committees and things like that. So we are going to be structurally ready whenever TAP does get announced and released. And then thanks, Jared, I think I already said that. Thanks, Jared, for covering the MMOF legislation. And then I think Kathleen or Danelle touched on the SS4A application window is open now, and those applications are due May 26th. That's Safe Streets for All. And that's both the planning and demonstration grants and the implementation grants. And everyone in here can lean heavily on the comprehensive safety action plan that this MPO has underwent. And that is all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Any other CDOT updates? Scott, please. Scott, if you're talking, I think you're muted.
He's running through some mic issues right now, guys. Sorry about that.
Anybody else want to jump in while Scott is working on his mic issues?
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, good. So Scott Skinner, Transit Liaison, Region 2. Two things I wanted to update you guys on is the NOFA for FY27 operating and admin, mobility management and planning projects using FTA funds is open. So that's the 5310, 5311, and 5304. I know Mountain Metro's gets all their funding from the COG, but just for any other agencies that are listening in, definitely apply for that. Also for the other grant opportunity that's coming up here soon is Mountain Metro's already in it, and some other ones around the region, which is the CTE formula program. FY27 is coming up. That is looking to be opening. CTE is the Clean Transit Enterprise, and we're looking probably a June release on that one. Just keep you guys eyes on the email and wait for that NOFA to come out. But as soon as you see that, please apply, and then that's going to be on a rolling basis. So as soon as you guys apply, he's going to start getting that going and contracting and everything. So that is all I have, Madam Chair.
Sir, appreciate that. Last call for CDOT, folks. All right, hearing none, let's move on to item number 8, member entity announcements. Does anyone from around the table have anything for the group?
Good afternoon, Matthew Helfant, Mountain Metro Transit. Have a few updates for you. First, we have several planning studies underway. Our COA, we just sent the task order to the consultant for signature, so we're about to execute that. The Title VI program, we are working with the consultant. We had our kickoff recently, and we are sending them data. The FAIR study, we submitted some data to the consultant. We've been meeting with the consultant for a few months now. Trying to think of what else there. Oh, we are going to do stakeholder engagement soon, I believe. And the alternative transportation study, there has been stakeholder engagement conducted by our consultant. And staff are currently reviewing the service analysis and working with the consultant on making some minor changes to it and just having some discussions around it. And then DBE, we are going to delay the DBE because CDOT is still working on coming up with a new list of eligible businesses per the federal guidance. And so we have to pause on that particular front. And then what else do we have? Let's see. We have recently finished or are working on several audits, plus certification for APWA. So those audits are the triennial with FTA and also include NTD, the National Transit Database. We're working on that one right now. And then finally, I want to introduce our new grant analyst. I believe she's online, Erica Winchell. Do you have anything to say, Erica? Well, she's the new Allison, so you'll be hearing from her quite a bit when it comes to grants. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member entities? Okay, hearing none. Looks like we have a lot of items under the information items that are going to be coming back to TAC. Is there anything else we should be looking forward to? All right, hearing none.
Yep. Other
Please,
than
Janelle.
what we heard.
Victoria,
Yes.
if you don't mind, I can hop in here real quick. I will be sending out an email to our tech members with our updated amendment form for our fiscal year 2027 through 2031 tip. I will send that out probably on Monday.
Thank you, Josh. Hey, anybody else? All right, sounds like we are going to adjourn. Can people stay online for the freight workshop?
Yes, this is the same link. And so I think at this point, Madam Chair, do you want to move right into it, or do you want to give people 5-10 minutes? What's your preference? Or druthers? I don't get to use the word druthers often.
But how about we adjourn until 2:30 and then come back and everybody can stay online if they'd like.
2:30 it is. So if you're online, just hang out here. You don't need to hang up or anything. If you're in the building, feel free to do whatever. And I might have to step out for another meeting real quick, but Josh is going to make the introductions. And hopefully we'll be back before you guys end the workshop.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We will re-adjourn or restart at 2:30.
Victoria, are we good to go?
Yeah, I am no longer controlling this meeting. You guys go as you feel.
Okay. Thank you everyone for staying for PPHG's Freight Plan Workshop. Our consultants will be presenting on the draft goals, objectives, and performance measures, along with an overview and description of each. This portion of the meeting is intended to provide an opportunity for discussion and feedback from the TAC, which will help inform and refine the development of our regional freight plan. The existing conditions draft was shared with the TAC for your review, and we appreciate your time and input in this effort, as it'll play an important role in shaping this document. I'll now turn it over to our consultants, Richard Driscoll and Christina Leach with Cambridge Systematics.
Thank you very much, Josh. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen here. Basically what we want to do here is give you that top to bottom look of the goals to performance measures. We had kind of discussed this in the previous tax and CACs, and so I just want to give you a quick reminder of what we had been doing over the course of our engagement effort. Basically what we had done was identified kind of several goal areas. There are 4 goal areas, and then objectives within those goal areas that kind of tell us what we're trying to achieve within each goal. And that's pretty much what you all have seen up until now. What we're going to be discussing today is the specific performance measures that are going to be kind of dictating what we're tracking within each objective, and kind of get a little bit of back and forth here. I'll have some questions about each of the performance measures, so we may spend a little bit of time going through all of this. We may not spend very much time at all. Maybe you all are really thrilled with what the performance measures were, but essentially what we've done is built this off of a lot of engagement, and ensuring that we're coming. We came to you all to kind of understand what was important. We built out this framework here, and then now we're coming back to ensure that we captured it the way that it was meant to be captured. And so I'll go to this really big slide here, and if this is kind of small or a little bit difficult to read, we can maybe try and pull up a PowerPoint or excuse me, an Excel or something. So feel free to jump in and raise your hand and say, hey, this is way too small. There's simply no way I'm going to be able to read this. But what we'll plan to do now is just kind of walk through each one, and then I have some focused questions for each one of these performance measures specifically. So within the safety goal area, we'll start with the enhancing safety for vulnerable road users, motorcycles, and other road users. Part of why we kind of highlighted vulnerable road users and motorcycles is because we know that those are kind of high fatality instances potentially, and especially as they interact with truck vehicles, it can be particularly chaotic. And so what we've done here is say, okay, we're looking at the crash count by vehicle type. That's data that we have that we can pull together. And the general description of that performance measure would be to decrease the number of incidents between trucks. And what we have here is VRUs. What we're recommending on our side is to update that to other road users generally. We can break that out by individual conflict type. So, truck to pedestrian, truck to bicycle, truck to motorcycle, but kind of trying to give that rather than it reading VRUs on that line, reading other road users, so that it captures a broader, the broader crash incident, the crash incidents that are happening with trucks. Does that kind of sound like the right approach? This one might be one of the more easier ones as we go through these.
Just want to highlight that transit users are vulnerable road users. They're pedestrians before they got on the bus.
We have some transit related stuff here later too, so I'm definitely gonna go look right at you when we do that. Transit road users, they're like multimodal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts from folks online? I'm not seeing anything in here. Excellent. That'll hopefully be not the easiest one. We'll go quickly through some of these as well. Okay, for our second one here, it was enhanced safety for truck drivers while parked. Part of this, what we're going to recommend here is maybe we break this out into two separate objectives, and this will be obviously up to your discretion as to whether or not we want to have this as two separate objectives or maybe two individual performance measures. But what we're trying to highlight here is one, safety while truck drivers are at parking facilities, designated truck parking facilities. And so that's things like lighting and ensuring there's no robbery related incidents, things of that nature. The other safety element is when parks are trucked but improperly trucked, or excuse me, improperly parked. And so what we have as the description on this line, you can see it on the far right there, is the decrease parked truck crashes. And so that's an incident where a truck is parked improperly. They're potentially in a neighborhood or on the side of the road or something like that, on a shoulder. And then there's a crash incident, usually a vehicle rear ends the truck, something of that nature. And so we thought maybe there's purpose in distinguishing between those two types of things because they are distinct and they are different. But we wanted to kind of get your feedback on that before we decided, hey, this should be broken out into two objectives, or this needs to look like two different performance measures. And then to that note, when we do break that out into, if we do, I should say, break that out into two separate things, what kind of specific measure do we want to be looking at when we're talking about safety at designated truck parking facilities? And so that might be something along the lines of, providing sufficient amenities. A lot of truck parking data sets that we have discuss some of the amenity types that they have. And so it might just be, enhancing the number of amenities that are available for truck drivers, something along those lines. It might just be a little bit more ethereal and like, generally just trying to decrease incidents, something that we don't necessarily have the data to track, but that we're interested in trying to resolve. And so, any thoughts on separating these into two objectives or two performance measures, if that's the preferred approach? Or for that matter, go ahead, sorry.
So I don't have a comment on one or two, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping in on somebody else. We have a lot of issues with trucks who are basically illegally parked on shoulders. How do we capture the safety aspect of improperly parked trucks?
So one of the data sets that we can pull, we can like kind of lean on safety data sets for essentially what we would be looking for would be vehicle with gross vehicle weight exceeding X threshold. And then the incident would be identified within the data set as a parked that vehicle, let's call it vehicle one, being parked or stationary. And then vehicle two would be striking that vehicle. And so that would kind of indicate that that vehicle is likely not in a designated truck parking area or facility. I think that's probably about as close as I can get, or as close as we can get, I think, as far as like available data sets are concerned. But I'm open to if other folks have like some citation level data set or something of that nature, that's reasonably accessible. What we do want to do is one of the priorities for these performance measures is ensure that we can actually track them. We don't want to be having to, impose like a regular cost of tracking things by like having to purchase a big data set or something of that nature. And so we are trying to target those data sets that we already have readily available to us.
Richard, so one thing we can do on that though is if we are moved.
Like that, she's not
You can hear me, yes.
This is Christina.
One thing that we can do on that is to look, I mean, we know how the number of trucks that are being parked illegally and where right now. So I think doing a comparison of that the next time this plan is done will help to show if there's been progress for those trucks, like if it's not, as big of an issue the next time that this is measured. I think another measure for that, it's rather indirect, but also how many truck parking spaces are added in a specific area. So if we know that there are areas where there are trucks parked illegally, which we have identified those through our outreach. And I don't know who said the comment on the phone, but I'd be interested to hear the specific locations that you're talking about too. If we add truck parking in those areas around there, then that could potentially be a measure to think that it would be likely that those trucks are now moving to that legal parking location rather than undesignated parking.
I kind of answer your question. I kind of missed who asked that. I apologize. Victoria, thank you.
Chavez, El Paso County, yeah.
And Victoria, did you have specific locations, and you can share it with us now or reach out to us later, because we would like to note that for the study.
I don't have them off the top of my head, but it's probably something I could try and put together and get to you.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Excellent. And just generally, I'll note to the truck parking, just like to the truck parking point, the second row of the resilience goal does incorporate truck parking availability, which is just a simple, count of truck parking available too. So we do have at least some degree of, at least right now, some degree of like almost, it's not quite utilization because we don't necessarily have those numbers, but it is at least speaking to the supply of truck parking. Cool. Okay, so the third objective is the enhance safety at or eliminate where possible at grade highway rail crossings. What we currently have, looking all the way to the description element of that, what we currently have is decreased incidents between trucks and trains. What we're recommending is to rewrite that to simply decrease incidents at crossings, because obviously like the trains that we're kind of thinking of and dealing with are going to be freight related anyway, and the number of incidents that are involving trucks specifically is probably pretty low over the course of like a 5-year period. And so kind of broadening that out more generally captures a little bit better a real safety measurable safety enhancement, as far as we're tracking from a performance measure standpoint. I think that was kind of the main question there, just kind of like moving that from the language currently is, decrease incidents between trucks and trains, changing it to decreasing incidents at crossings or at grade crossings. Does that kind of like capture a better, representation of safety at highway rail crossings? Excuse me.
And just to be clear on that, so that would be pedestrians, bicyclists, it would be all modes of travel.
All incidents at crossings, yeah.
With limited or no passenger rail, the trains are mostly freight.
I agree. So sounds like a general, I mean, for lack of a doesn't sound like anything, I guess it's the silence is kind of speaking to kind of that change makes a little bit of sense. Cool. Any other thoughts or comments on that one? That one might be a pretty easy one. We also have, as a secondary element of that, the reduced number of at grade crossings. That's just a general. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, I thought you were raising. That's just one of the the general approaches that are pretty standard across like freight planning. is, you know, where to the extent possible you decrease the number of conflict points. Okay, excellent. And also that was an element that was discussed specifically in some of our localities here at grade crossing concerns. Okay, next is the facilitate the safe transport of hazardous materials and oversized overweight vehicles within and through the region. Currently, what we have is incidents involving hazmat vehicles. To decrease the incidents involving hazmat vehicles. I guess generally the question is this capturing the spirit of this objective, or should this be more focused on a measure of a measure kind of around the routing of oversized, overweight slash hazardous material vehicles? Right now, I think as far as the safety element is concerned with the hazardous materials, we can kind of identify those vehicles through the characteristics of the crash incident. But I didn't know if if maybe we wanted to speak more to how what routes they're taking or how they're traveling through the system rather than the specific, just trying to generally decrease the incidents involving specifically hazardous materials vehicles. So I guess the overarching question there is this kind of capturing the spirit of this objective, or should we kind of take this back to the drawing board and think about it a little bit more? I think no no words is good words in my opinion. So what we'll do is we'll keep going with this. If we hear, well, obviously there'll be opportunities for our for certainly the freight steering committee folks, which we have a couple of people here who are on the or who are on that, and then you all will get you know, a more complete version of this document before it obviously goes through the approvals process. And so if there, you know, if there's a feeling that maybe there's some small changes that we'd like to try and make too, we can always kind of come back to that. You know, being sensitive to a timeline of getting this out before the end of the federal fiscal year. Okay, excellent. I'll go to the next one then. Our last safety related one is advancing awareness of and encouraging response to human trafficking. This is one of those this is one of those objectives that has a much more difficult performance measure to specifically tie to, because you know, without just going around and counting the number of signs or something of that nature, which we just simply don't have the data for, it's kind of hard to quantify how aware are people of human trafficking, and we know that this is this specific objective arose because of the increased efforts and increased attention to human trafficking in the region. And so what we're kind of recommending here is a little bit less of a very specific objective and measurable objective, and more of a kind of a you know, in the spirit of objective, and kind of what we have here is the increasing public knowledge through awareness campaigns. And so that doesn't have, while it doesn't have a specific measure, it is kind of speaking or like advancing that that objective of kind of bringing to the top that human trafficking issue that we're also aware of. Does anyone have any thoughts on specific performance measures, or is that kind of like digging a little bit too deep and having it as an objective that we can kind of just point to whenever we're kind of doing decision making is kind of sufficient you know, in that way?
So, yeah, this one actually seems quite odd for me to see in a freight plan.
Mhm.
Not to say that's not an important issue. I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
I want to say this, but to minimize it, but I don't know that it involved in a transportation plan. That might be something that comes as an element along the network, but not necessarily directly related to anything on our planning effort for freight movement.
Especially like given maybe the way that description is even phrased is kind of like it's a little bit removed from project oriented work and more.
And frankly, the way we look at transportation, I mean, those you could almost lump it into the first line about the vulnerable road users.
I think we need to ask John because he was the one who wanted to add this.
Yeah, there may, and yeah, we'll bounce that around with John too when he
Yeah, that'd be great.
gets
It
back.
just seemed, I was wondering if there was I've never seen this in a transportation plan before.
Mhm.
And if there was a special reason why it was added this time. It's fine, I get that if that's the case, but.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so with that point, our board of directors, when we presented the freight plan, wanted us to go in that direction and explore more of that opportunity.
And I will say there is a push among the trucking industry in general to try and address human trafficking more, because sometimes it does, they see a lot of things that happen. And so there was just like a big webinar the other day, a big transportation webinar on human trafficking and how it's kind of everybody's responsibility to be looking out, and specifically the trucking industry. So I agree, it's not commonly in transportation plans, but it is a topic area that is being discussed in the trucking area.
I've kind of noted here, let's think about how this lives within this goals, performance measures, or objectives, performance measures framework. Because yeah, if this doesn't, if it's kind of like way too advanced to be putting it up in the objectives level, maybe it does live a little bit more deeply in that first objective there. But yeah, we can certainly at a minimum, make that some level of call out within the context of the plan if it doesn't necessarily live in the goals, objectives, performance measures.
Oh, Welling Clark, El Paso County Citizen Advisory Committee. Just sitting in, thank you very much. With regards to what was just brought forward, the aspect of human trafficking, I don't envision, personally, I would envision that affecting transportation flow. I would envision that actually being where information is gathered and passed off to law enforcement. So I don't know if that's an aspect of the plan or not. That may be something very beneficial. Two more questions with regards to safety, and I will then be quiet. When you talk about performance measures and reducing accidents, things of that nature, are you taking into account a density issue where you have per capita or number of, say, transits per hour in an area? Because when you have more transits per hour, the actual rate change increases overall. Or if I look at absolute numbers, but I'm growing in population, I may not see something. So you would capture that sensitivity. Do you have that incorporated, or if you haven't, would you?
We certainly could. That makes a lot of sense. So like like crashes per vehicle mile or something of that nature. I don't know that currently the data that we have available to us has that readily available, and maybe that's why we kind of like stepped a little bit away from that. But like the per mile or per truck or per vehicle level, but that would certainly kind of give better weight to some of the rural areas as well, where like certainly like what might end up happening would be not like just kind of like a refocus towards urban areas, just from simple volume perspective, not necessarily capturing the fact that there might be specifically unsafe locations.
I do know CDOT actually tracks and has graphs at periodic points of major roads, arterials, things like that, of volume per hour. And I don't know if that would be of help integrating that data to look at it from that aspect, from a standpoint of rush hour, non-rush hour. I mean, just an idea. The other thing is, when you talked about hazardous material accidents, one of the things I would recommend is looking at the magnitude of the incident, because different hazmat incidents will affect a community very smally, not a good word, sorry. Okay. But also it could be a significant incident if it is like an extremely hazardous material where it affects the community, the number of call out of the hazmat units and things like that. So you can tag magnitude in as well as volume, you may capture some real good sensitivity and that you can tell the community what to expect, and then they can kind of plan for it.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
That was excellent point. Yeah, yeah, we'll explore what the data has available there on that. Because that is meaningful too. It's kind of an interesting perspective that I hadn't even thought of. All right, excellent. Any other comments on safety? We'll kind of move into economic development if there are none. Do we need to take a cookie break? Just kidding. All right. All right. Moving into economic development. The first element, create an attractive business environment in the region. What we've looked at for this one is generally increase business count, dollar impact, and or inventory of rail served parcels. Should we eliminate the broader question is, should we eliminate rail served parcels? Because we are including that in some latter in one of the latter objectives. You can kind of see it at the last two of the economic development. The last two objectives in economic development already capture that there. And then beyond that, we know that business count is relatively easy to track. Just from, we can use LEHD data or something of that nature. And I believe the freight analysis framework, while maybe not necessarily every year updated, gives us a dollar impact value. Do those two live in this objective pretty well? We can keep both, obviously. So I don't know if business count or dollar impact maybe tell the story, or if one or the other is a better piece of this.
I just need a clarifying question. I thought you said, and maybe I misheard you, that you would want to eliminate the impact of rail served parcels.
No, so it was increase the number of rail served parcels is the
That makes more sense to me. That's not what I heard.
Sorry,
It
I might have stumbled over my
trouble.
words.
I just wanted to clarify.
No, you're good.
And honestly, I would feel more strongly about supporting the business count versus the fiscal impact, because frankly, we can't. I mean, that's more private data, and it would be hard for us to quantify that on the regional impact economically. But we can show, I mean, obviously our economy would be growing as we're continuing to bring businesses in on that rail track. And if you go and look later on in this list, particularly when you consider the Southern Colorado Rail Park, I think that makes a lot of sense to me.
This is Victoria. On the first one, if we're already tracking rail served parcels in a different performance measure, then we probably shouldn't double count it.
Sounds good. So generally, one, remove the rail served parcels. We're already counting that elsewhere. And then two, kind of sticking to the more business count specifically, since dollar impact, one is a little bit more difficult to measure, and we don't want to be inaccurate. And then two, that's more of like a private sector trying to sneak that data away from them is a little bit more challenging. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, business count is by far and away the easiest. And then to be fair, we also incorporate freight analysis framework or like Transearch level data, which has mode specific type dollar amounts that we can track generally, and would be incorporated in any future freight plan or freight existing conditions analysis that you all would do probably. Excellent. Any other comments for that one? Good. Okay. The next objective is understanding the role of freight in the tri-county economy. And so this one, the hope here again is to increase businesses. It's kind of like in relation to the previous one. But perhaps what we have currently is written as increased freight sector businesses. And so whereas the previous one was kind of just speaking to more businesses more generally, this one was looking at the freight business sector specifically. And so maybe a broader question here might be, one, does the first bullet need to speak specifically to freight sector businesses? Or the first objective, should that be speaking specifically to freight sector businesses? And then two, if that is the case, does this objective, the understanding the role of freight in the tri-county economy, is it maybe more of a measure of tracking the types of businesses that are within each specific county, so that we can get a better sense of what role different freight sector businesses are going to be playing in each economy, and not necessarily a specific outcome, but rather just kind of developing that understanding by knowing what types of businesses freight sector businesses are operating in those. And so I'll pull those questions back out again. That first question being, are we okay? Are we happy with including all businesses in that first objective? Excellent. There are no comments, in which case then what we can do is kind of dig a little bit deeper and look at that freight sector businesses specifically in that second bullet there. Does that make sense? Excellent. And there are opportunities obviously to look at this on like a obviously a by county basis, because different sectors are driving, or I should say this, different industries are driving the freight sector dependent on where in PPACG you're located. And we want to make sure that we're, capturing the breadth of all the folks that PPACG represents. So excellent. Excuse me. All right, going to the next one. So maybe I'll approach this next one as the next pair. What we had done originally was we wanted to elevate connecting the workforce. First was just simple workforce growth, was just growing the workforce within the freight sector. But the other element of that was connecting the workforce in a very literal way, actually connecting workers to a workplace. And so when we had brought this once before, they kind of lived together as one. And then we had a little bit of a deeper discussion about this and decided it made more sense to break it out into two. One, obviously connecting the workforce with, very literally, worker to workplace. And then the second one being kind of trying to grow the workforce, through education, investment, and other, just kind of getting those opportunities there. So, excuse me again. So for the first one, in the connecting the workforce, in the very physical sense, what we have here is increase the transit service to freight businesses. I don't know if the freight plan should be speaking specifically to, access or transit access to freight specific businesses. What we're kind of asking here is, does it make sense to incorporate a measure like that? What we want to do is kind of try and approach this in like a providing transportation alternatives way. And so this was the best measure that we could come up with for how are we providing transit or transportation alternatives. Well, transit is like one of those ones that bubbles up to the top. So is this kind of a measure that makes sense? Is this a little bit off the beaten path for a freight plan?
Richard, I think on that one, the question too is this an issue here? It is in a lot of locations that there's warehousing areas where transit isn't available. But I don't know that we have heard that from anyone in our outreach. So is there anyone here who is that something that you hear from businesses
I've
that people
heard,
can't get to work?
from different talks about the Amazon warehouse and getting workers there. So I do think this.
Okay, and then I think another question is there anything being done to increase transit there? Like, is that, it's a good measure to have, but is that something that's actually kind of in the works or that people are thinking about?
So in our 2050 long range transit plan, we do have some express corridors, including one that would link the airport with downtown. The airport is right near and many of the freight hubs.
Okay.
So it's definitely on our radar.
Okay, and that's plenty. Like, that's great. And I think that's something but I just didn't want us to be tracking something that we're like, yeah, we're not even gonna do that. So, or it's not a priority for us, so.
And service right now to those facilities is relatively limited. So there is opportunity to add frequency and and more span of service there as well. So yes, I think this is a great performance measure. But the description is a little bit vague, just saying increase
Transit service.
increase transit service to freight businesses. Because that could be just actual service, just having a fixed route that serves the area. It could be adding frequency. It could be adding span of day, nights, weekends, etc. So trying to think of a better way to, because you're going to have to measure it.
Yeah.
So
Does that look like stop instances maybe? Like the number of, like, so frequency, like the number of times a vehicle or a transit, uh a bus or a train or whatever is stopping within a designated, industrial zone or a commercial zone. Excuse me. Is that, does that kind of capture what we're looking for there? Or do we need to be more about like uh like revenue miles? Um, I don't know if I mean, at a certain point, if something's 1,000 miles away, you're going to increase the revenue miles, but that's not necessarily meaningful. I don't know.
Could it be added bus stops, like added locations?
Simply
to the
number
area?
of bus stops.
Like a number?
it could be, but that wouldn't get to all of it because there are bus stops near freight facilities.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were getting closer there with number of times or frequency the bus passes by. But then again, there's probably some other areas of the city with freight facilities that may not have any service at all. So, because the frequency also gets the span of service because the bus comes additional times with additional hours. But it doesn't get to expanding service and adding new service.
The locations that don't necessarily have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it could be more qualitative than quantitative.
Okay.
Maybe
we have like a dual element to this where we
Yeah.
have that frequency element where it's just simply number of times a bus is stopping in or that a bus stop, or frequent, it would be a frequency plus the stop location, kind of combined. And then on top of that we have like a secondary performance measure that's a little bit more speed, and that like ethereal version where it's just like we'd like to see more, we'd like to see better service in locations that don't already have good service, something along those lines.
I think that could work.
Okay, we'll put it together and see what that looks like. Give me a moment here. I want to make sure I get this captured. Okay, there we go. Perfect. And yeah, and this isn't meant to be, you know, the end all capture it, you know, capture everything as far as transit is concerned. This is trying to identify opportunities for alternatives as it's, you know, specifically relates to freight and freight businesses. Yeah. Excellent. Any other thoughts before we move on? All right, the other half of this was the encourage freight workforce education, investment, and growth in the region. In this one, we're simply looking at total employment, and freight employment, and saying, hey, we'd like these. We want to see an increase in you know, the total employment, and then as a subsection of that of total employment, freight employment. Any concerns with that? I think that one is relatively straightforward. I wish they all were like that. I could just fly through these with you guys, but instead I'm going to keep you here for 3 hours. Alrighty, we'll go to the next one here. Identifying infrastructure investment opportunities to manage and facilitate growth. This one we colored red because similar to the extent of public outreach one from safety as it related to human trafficking, we didn't have a really good performance measure that spoke to this specifically. But you know, essentially, what we're trying to say here is, you know, where we can try to prioritize projects that will have a net positive impact on moving freight through the PPACG in and through the PPACG region. And so the description on that one is a little bit more ethereal, that track freight positive project impacts, and maybe even more so just thinking about on an annual basis the number of projects that are positively impacting freight movement, or at least positively, you know, coordinating it, or you know, improving the logistics, or trying to support freight in that way. But without having a very specific performance measure, unless someone brings it up, I think that that's probably our best way to approach you know, investment opportunities, is by simply understanding where, when, and where are we investing. Does that kind of make sense generally? Does anyone have thoughts on more specific approach to that? I think that this one, living as a bit of a softer performance measure without a really hard measurement, isn't necessarily a bad thing. Gives you a lot more flexibility on how that kind of looks too, so that you can, you know, you can grow your system in the way that you want it to, any way you want it to look. Excellent. Alrighty, these last two, we already spoke to what the actual performance measures are, but I'll read through these objectives. The first one was the Elevator Regional Rail Freight Hub, and then in parentheses, the Southern Colorado Rail Park was kind of elevated. And then explore opportunities to maximize the use of intercity rail spurs. That one kind of bubbled up because there was a recognition, you know, from some partner agencies that, you know, maybe there's not a maximum utilization of existing freight infrastructure. And so while we want to promote investment in new infrastructure, certainly, we also want to be cognizant of the assets that we already have, and trying to make the best use of those. And so that's kind of where that element comes in. And so for both of those, they do speak to a rail highway element, so a rail truck intermodal kind of element. And so that for that one, we looked at inventory of rail served parcels. I think that captures it pretty well. Generally, if we wanted to break these out to have two different performance measures, I'd be interested to hear if anyone had another performance measure that they'd like to track that kind of related to these. Otherwise, we can kind of keep this as one performance measure, group it up as kind of like two objectives that really kind of live as one performance measure. Does that kind of satisfy this, or any other thoughts? Should they be broken out and have their own separate performance measures? Maybe is the question there. Excellent. We flew through those last three.
Before we move from economic development, I just have a question generally related to economic development.
I have an answer.
Have you considered prioritizing curbside management in the plan? Because all users can benefit from good, sound curbside management, including transit.
Yeah. That's something that actually is brought up a lot in freight plans. Part of getting to that level of depth is that's like a very like city specific or municipality specific control, I guess, or policy. We can incorporate maybe the way to put this is like we've considered like incorporating the language around as a best practice curbside management or curb management as it relates to trucks. But we don't have anything specific as far as the objectives are concerned, because the plan is generally speaking to like a much broader vision. But
no, I agree. That was more of a general question.
We have like we have done like marginally niche analysis where we're looking at the top truck generators and then the top truck attractors tracts. Sorry, that's a hard way to say that, but the top truck generating tracts and the top truck attracting tracts in the region, and kind of like spoke to how where trucks are coming from and where they're going to, but due to like lack of really pinpoint level data and just like the general vision of the plan, or the general depth of the plan, I should say. We didn't go too much further into other than what are these partner tracks and what does that mean for the transport? What are kind of like some key facilities? But yeah, I think that curb management is one of those things that really pops up all the time too. So
yeah, I just wanted to make sure it's addressed in the plan.
Yeah.
I believe that this plan will be folded into the 2050 long range plan, or 20 whatever next 55. So it gives if someone wanted to propose a project, it gives some planning foundation for it.
I think then what we can do is incorporate like a best practices kind of, a small best practices section in relation to that. And I think that's a really good idea. Especially with the Amazon warehouse and a number of other, big box retailers that do like distribution and stuff like that. Cool.
Question.
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, okay. One of the things I have a question about is, what is the definition of freight? Is it a certain volume or weight size? And the reason where I'm going with that is because of the increased delivery of using drones between 400 feet to down to 30 feet. Does the freight plan fall in with that? It's not necessarily a road plan, but it's more mobile in the air.
We have heard discussion about this too in some of the what's the word, engagement efforts that we've been doing. I need to look specifically at the responses and in the engagement section, because we kind of want to highlight some of those discussions that pop up. As far as I understood, there wasn't any pursuit of that in the region because of airspace control in the region. Certainly not at this time. That's like one of those funky things that it's like we don't know how to address it until it's time to address it, kind of thing. And so, you know, in the plan, I don't know how to what level of detail that goes into, other than the recognition of some of the discussions that we've heard around it. Would that be considered freight from the standpoint of like a heavy, like the freight plan as it kind of lives now? Probably not. That looks more probably like the um, lighter duty vehicles that we're not necessarily capturing, um, you know, in the freight plan, because they kind of get mixed up. They're so, in short, to answer your question, yes, there is a weight threshold that we're examining, but we are also thinking about that and, you know, discussing it in the freight plan, but without any specific like policy or you know, yes or no, like promote or, you know, dissuade kind of language around it.
So then it would be fair to say that the freight plan basically addresses ground transportation modes, either roads, rails, or things of that nature, not aerial, because that has yet to be defined with the FAA.
That would be very fair, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Good question. I like it. All righty, we'll move into resilience if there's no other comments. Cool. We are almost done, folks. We can hopefully fly through these. The next one is ensure resilient, reliable regional freight transportation system. What we're recommending here is the NPM RDS measures, such as travel time reliability, delay, and bottlenecks. These are pretty standard within freight plans, and so we're not likely to move away from them as measures. But maybe the question here is, what level of priority do we want to put on this, maybe on this measure? What we have an opportunity here to do is kind of wait a little bit certainly within this goal, some of these objectives, and because that one has so many different measures, we can maybe weight them individually, or if we're looking to prioritize travel time reliability over bottlenecks, perhaps that one or the other gets weighted a little bit more heavily. Are there any like thoughts on to what degree this first objective should carry a little bit more oomph when because at the end of the day, what we want these to be is kind of like a decision-making toolkit. We want you all to be able to reflect on these objectives as you're going through and making decisions in the context of freight, not to be exclusively considered. You know, we don't want this to be the only consideration. Freight alone, everything needs to be freight. But what we're trying to do is provide a good kind of understanding of, okay, well, what do we even want to accomplish with freight? And so if we wanted to kind of elevate that one a little bit more, we certainly could.
So improvements that help trucks could also could also help buses.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important to have this in the plan so that those improvements could be multimodal.
Excellent.
I think that's something we can include in some of the narrative that we put out there too, and what that, you know, just to put that on there, that it could be for both, and so that there's cross references between plans.
Mm-hmm. It is good when there is cohesiveness, or what is that word, between plans. It shows that synergy. Yeah, we've put real thought into how these come together.
Just a comment with regards to that first statement. Would it also be fair to say that you'll be looking at the rush hour, peak, and ebb and flows, as well as when arrival rates come in and things like that, so you can identify routes best for the freight deliveries to take? I'm talking primarily road systems, so you minimize impact on traffic flow.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
I'll add peak hour assessment. I'm sure the truck drivers do too, right? Alrighty. Any other comments on that one? We'll go to the next one otherwise. Excellent. Alrighty. Support truck drivers through safe and dependable parking options. This one's one of those more simpler ones. We had spoken about it before. We're looking at specifically truck parking availability. And to that degree, we'll be looking specifically at count of truck parking, count of truck slips, maybe is the way to describe that. And so we can look at both the number of truck stops, but more importantly, the number of spaces available to trucks. I think, you know, unless anyone has any objection, I think that's a viable measure for that, and it makes a lot of sense. It's very straightforward.
Just a question with that. Will you be surveying truck drivers about where would be optimal places to put these type of slips?
Yes, what we've done is we won't be surveying like we won't be further surveying truck drivers is maybe a way to put that. What we've done as part of this plan was made a concerted effort to get some of those anecdotal evidence from people in the industry through a online geolocation tool that allows you to drop a pin at a location and describe an issue that was going on there. And so we are incorporating that level, that kind of information into the plan, and will become a resource in the decision-making process, broadly. So yeah, we have. Short answer, yes. Excellent. Okay, next one. Strategic use of technology and other innovations to improve operations, direct vehicle routing / rerouting, and keep freight operators informed. This one was kind of born out of an understanding that sometimes truckers aren't necessarily as informed as they'd like to be, as far as closures are concerned. A lot of Colorado has some mountain passes and things like that, and so this isn't an uncommon issue here in Colorado, but it's certainly one that we can call out specifically for PPACG. You have a number of different routes, particularly US 24 and 285, that can kind of get impacted pretty heavily by weather-related closures and things like that. So that's where that was born out of. The kind of general solution that was identified was providing those changeable message signs or other technologies that support informing truck drivers. And so what we have as the performance measure is signage and changeable message signs, since that's stuff that that we have a little bit more direct control over. I guess the question here is generally, is there a way that we want to try and incorporate other digital infrastructure or information infrastructure? So like some sort of trucker tools that that live in the vehicle cab, or is that kind of a little bit beyond our reach? That's not where we live. We live mostly we live on the actual like the physical infrastructure on the roadways and stuff, and just capturing increasing signage and changeable message signs is kind of is sufficient for this specific objective.
Could it be something like Waze also, where you're going around, if there's an accident, you suddenly can reroute to different areas?
So you mean like a like the app?
Something like the app, but something where it could be real time in there, so it's not just the visual aspect on there, but where people can track it and say, oh, this has occurred here. Here's the best route for trucks. Here's the best route for I'll say commuters and things like that.
We'll explore what kind of like data we can collect on that for sure. And that may be one of the more ethereal ones, like, hey, we're trying to explore different types of technologies that we can kind of advance. Any other thoughts on that? I need to get the transcript of this afterwards and see how well it caught everything I said. Is supposedly I said. The way I say things maybe isn't perfectly clear, which is fine. You guys are understanding, okay? Okay, we only have a handful more left here, and I think the military one might be the easiest. So let's move on to this final one here. The understanding the supply chain vulnerabilities and strengthen primary and alternative truck routes. Basically, this one focuses on asset hardening is maybe the way to put that. And so the measure here is to improve road condition along primary and alternative truck routes. Basically, what we've done is identified through the study the priority freight corridors in the region, and so we can just track the roadway condition of those locations, and then generally in decision-making processes, if we're considering improving or making some sort of project happen, then we can identify that location pretty easily. Any thoughts on that? Might be one of the quicker ones.
Would this also account traffic accidents, weather, bridge failures, things like that?
We can incorporate. Yeah, this is a good question. Maybe it's worth talking about incorporating a performance measure that looks at just like general closure counts. The concern with that is like how do we prevent closures? You know what I mean? Like how do we what can we do to improve? So the performance measure in theory for that would be reduce number of closures. Some of those closures aren't.
What could be done is you could add flags or like a flag to closure. What was caused of it? Was it planned maintenance? Was it weather? Was it an accident? What was the time of day? Things of that nature, and then do a regression fit on it to see where you may find some gain in that.
Question on that, who's tracking that?
I think CDOT has closure.
CDOT have
information.
closure. They have a ton of information, so that's why I'm like, because that's the other thing we're trying to really do with these performance measures is it has to be something that's being measured somewhere. Somebody's got to, yeah, and it's got to be easy because the idea is to update these like as the freight plan continues to be updated. But since you guys all have it available, as you're going along and see things that are happening, it's always good to keep those freight discussions going. But yeah, maybe we can check with Eric on that.
Yeah.
That's an excellent idea because can CDOT provide you the information so you don't have to dig for it? They can push it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's what we'll ask them about that.
They do.
Because we can gather it this time and then, next time around, we want it to be stuff that's readily available that the ACG can
Yeah, I mean, that's just a simple communication thing too.
Right, and all the MPOs in the state could benefit from that as well.
Absolutely. Excellent. I love that. Cool. All right, that's the last resilience one. Any other comments on that one specifically or resilience generally? Alrighty, we're almost there, folks. The last three are military related. So the first one is again highlighted red there because this is a little bit more of there's not a hard performance measure specific to this, but in our engagement efforts, what we've heard is that the collaboration between PPACG and military installations and facilities has been really excellent, and that they feel really well heard, and that there's a good collaboration. And so this objective kind of just speaks to, hey, let's maintain that open line of communication. And so that's basically what this performance measure is that open invitation for discussion of freight related needs, as it relates to military organizations and installations. So any other thoughts on this one? Is there something specific that we want to speak to more, or I feel that this doesn't necessarily have to have a hard performance measure. It probably lives better without having a really hard performance measure, but open to discussion.
If the military is happy, you're doing a good job.
You all are doing a good job. We're just documenting it, right? Excellent. Okay. Last two. The second one is enhancing wayfinding on public roads in coordination with installations. That one was very specifically called out because it sounds like one of the major issues that installations are observing as it relates to freight is, vehicles are going to the wrong gate entrance, and ultimately the roadway gets congested, and the roadway may have been congested before the truck got there. It may a truck may have even caused the congestion to a certain degree. And so just basically getting a truck driver to the correct location. And they said, incorporating more signage would be really helpful in that way. And so essentially what this performance measure looks like is strategically located changeable message signs or interstate signage directing vehicles to the appropriate gates. That seems like a very easy measure to track there as well. Any thoughts or concerns with that one? I thought this might be an easier segment. All right, cool. Excuse me. And then the last one here, maintain and strengthen infrastructure in conjunction with military needs. This is essentially, hold on. Improving and maintaining, what we selected as performance measure here is improving and maintaining road condition. So this is another road condition element on strategic military routes. They have pre-designated routes that that are strategic for freight movement or heavy vehicle movement, between installations and through the strategic interstate and rail networks. And so essentially here we're trying to ensure that where there are strategic military routes, we're ensuring that the road condition is such that it can handle that capacity. Cool. Alrighty. So that's the last objectives. So we kind of got through them. We got some good notes. We can kind of take this back, have an internal discussion, expand these a little bit more, and then build out kind of a decision-making toolkit around some of the stuff that we've heard today. The last question I have is there anything that we're generally missing? Is there something here that you want to communicate that you feel isn't being captured in some of these objectives, performance measures that you feel should be kind of elevated that don't necessarily have a spot to live in right now, but maybe we can put them somewhere?
Just one question, and I don't have any contacts there, but are you talking to the airport?
Yes, we have spoken with the airport.
Good.
I don't have the specific kind of outcomes of those discussions, but it's going to be an element of, at a minimum, our outreach, our engagement chapter. Essentially, part of what the engagement chapter is doing is, one, talking about who we spoke with, and then two, how what we heard from everybody informed the plan and these this ultimate goals, objectives, performance measures kind of framework here. So yes, short answer, yes.
Just a comment on page 34 of your report. The report is very well put together, very clear, concise, and logical and flow. 34 is that quad chart of a SWOT. And one thing with elected officials, they usually get 600 to 1,000 pages a week to read. And what might be beneficial, I don't know if this is possible, but where you have the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, like under weakness, it said our major corridor, Highway 24, is subject to bad weather because we don't have alternate routes. When we have bad weather in this region, it shuts down the whole region. And so is there a way to put something in there that where you can cite that mitigation? We have, good capability for mitigation, poor or minimum mitigation. And then also kind of with regards to the strengths and opportunities, is there a weight value? Because that would tell me as an elected official, where do I want to put my limited time, effort, and resources in to what to go after? I don't know if that's possible or not. I know that would be a benefit to every single elected official that's in the region.
Too late. Just to help support prioritization and yeah. Okay, excellent. I captured that. Yeah, generally hope, our hope is ultimately what we're going to be doing with all this information is building out that like a decision making toolkit, and to a degree what we can call it. We've kind of like interchanged the names, but like a prioritization framework is what we've also called it. Just trying to give a sense of, all right, how do we prioritize? How do we even begin to think about what is and isn't important in the context specifically of freight? Obviously, there's a lot of other competing factors, but this is what the freight plan is speaking to. So excellent. All right, any other comments? Otherwise, I'll give you guys back the rest of your day. I thought I might have stolen the whole thing, but it looks like we made it out of here before 4. All righty. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with everybody. Thank you for all the feedback. And we will be in touch about the freight plan as it continues to come together.